returned by FC and those returned by GC through direct elections who are present. I declare the motion passed. Debate on motion with no legislative effect. Motion of thanks. The Honorable Starry Lee will move this motion. Honorary Dr. WU Chi-wai, Dr. Fernando CHEUNG, LEUNG Yiu-chung, Honorary Andrew Wan, and Dr. Honorary KWOK wish to move amendments to the motion. I have accepted the recommendations of the House Committee on the time limits for speeches in the debate. Each member, including the mover of the motion and movers of the amendments to the motion, may speak in any of the 5 debate sessions, but he or she may only speak once in each session. The total speaking time limit for each member is 30 minutes. In each debate session, I will first call upon those members who wish to speak. After members have spoken, if necessary, I will suspend the meeting for 10 minutes for the relevant public officers to prepare their response. Only public officers may speak when the Council resumes. If public officers consider the suspension of meeting not necessary, I will invite them to respond right after members have spoken. After the public officers have spoken, the debate will come to a close. After the 5 debate sessions have ended, Hon Starry Lee may speak on the amendments. I will then call upon movers of the amendments to move amendments. After the amendments have been dealt with, the Honorable Starry Lee may reply. Finally, members will vote on the original motion or the motion as amended. The debate on this motion will last for 3 days. Today's debate will be suspended at about 10 p.m. The debate for tomorrow will start at 9 a.m. and be suspended at about 10 p.m. The debate for the day after tomorrow will also start at 9 a.m. I will adjourn the meeting after conclusion of all the business on the agenda, or at around 10 p.m. I now call upon the Honorable Starry Lee to speak and move the motion. Ms. Starry Lee. President, I move, as Chairman of the House Committee, I move that this Council thanks the Chief Executive for her address. I must point out that this motion is inclination-free. It was moved under the rules of procedure and the convention of the LegCo so that the LegCo can discharge our duties under the basic law, and that is to receive and debate the PA of CE. Now, this is the first report of the 5th CE, and in this 3 days of debate, I believe that members will debate on the governance principles of the CE and also the vision and measures of the current term government on various policy issues. As the chair of the House Committee, I'm very happy to hear that the Chief Executive emphasized once again that improving executive-legislature relationship is an important part of good governance. Apart from committing to improving executive-legislature relationship, the Chief Executive, since assuming office, has taken specific actions to show her sincerity. In the first Wednesday after she assumed office, the CE came to attend the CE's Q&A session and asked government officers to communicate more with LegCo members and to secure support from members on various policies. The CE also agreed to increase the number of CE Q&A sessions so that she could directly answer members' questions more. And after the House Committee meeting each week, together with the Deputy Chairman of the House Committee, we'll meet with the CS4A, and this is a very important communication channel for the Executive and Legislature to communicate. And after I've been re-elected as the House Committee Chairman, in the first meeting after that, I have asked the CS4A that there should be further improvement between executive and legislature, and I said that I have expectations for that relationship to be improved, and I have urged the CS4A to meet more frequently with LegCo's members, and I and Deputy Chairman of House Committee are more than willing to do more coordination work. Apart from communicating with the executive authorities, I noticed that in the PA, it sets out many measures to develop high-value added industry and promote economic diversification. To achieve these objectives, we have to strengthen our cooperation with the mainland. I hope that the different panels of the LegCo can have more exchanges with mainland authorities in the new legislative session, and I hope that the government, the SARG government, can help in this regard. Now, after the policy address has been delivered, the 18 panels have hosted a series of PA briefing sessions and to hear the Bureau directors explaining the government's policies and measures on various fronts, including governance, economic development, housing, education, and healthcare services. I believe that the different panels will proactively follow up on these issues. Now, at any one time, only 16 bills committee can operate, and now we have a full filled to capacity. According to the legislative timetable of the government, the legislature has to at least scrutinize 16 bills in this legislative session. Apart from these 16 bills, which have to do with economy and livelihood, the LegCo has to also scrutinize controversial national anthem law and co-location arrangements. And we can see that the LegCo will have a very onerous workload and scrutinize bills in the next year. I believe that you will agree that the society has a lot of disputes which have affected the normal operation of the LegCo, and we can't deal with livelihood and economic development issues. We have a backlog of economic and livelihood issues to handle, and this is something that the Hong Kong people would not like to see. Recently, because of the co-location arrangement and also the amendment of ROP, the atmosphere in the LegCo has been very tense. I look forward that in these 3 days, LegCo members can stop fire for the time being so that we can have a smooth debate on the PA and that members can make the best use of their time to give views on the PA. As chair of the House Committee, I look forward to the CE and the Bureau directors carefully listening to members' views and to respond proactively. In addition, I would also continue urging the government to listen more to views of the different political parties before the policies are promulgated or at different stages of the bills committee drafting, so that there is enough time for members to scrutinize the bills. Now, the LegCo atmosphere has been tense. I appeal to members to forge consensus and narrow down our differences so that we can create more room for cooperation between the LegCo and executive. We should adopt a rational and pragmatic attitude. We should step up our coordination so that the LegCo can operate more smoothly and that policies beneficial to the society and economy can be implemented, and that the Hong Kong people's well-being can be further promoted. So I speak to move the motion.
I now propose the question to you that the motion moved by Ms. Starry Lee be passed. This council will conduct a joint debate on the motion and the amendments. We'll now proceed to the first debate session. The debate theme is Diversified Economy. This session covers the following 10 policy areas: public finance, commerce and industry, economic development other than energy, Belt and Road, Guangdong-Hong, Kong-Macao Bay Area, financial affairs, maritime and aviation, professional services, innovation and technology industries, and creative industries. Members who wish to speak in this session will please press the Request to Speak button. Mr. Charles Mok. Mr. President, the 2017 policy address of the Chief Executive proposed to put in over $10 billion on 8 areas in relation to creative industries. They are to improve R&D, review legislation, open data, government procurement, and popular use of INT in teaching. I have made a proposal to the Chief Executive. I'm glad that I see that from the 8 proposals I've made, manpower training, R&D, stimulating investment, fintech, SME, investment in future, education, open data, smart city, digital infrastructure, and information security. 7 out of the 8 points I've made have been responded in this policy address, and it came with a series of policies as well. This is different from previous terms of government. When they launch policies, they just put in place a few more parks, a few more projects, and set up a few more funds. So we see that this time the current term government is more proactive, and they have learned from other countries. Say, for example, Singapore, their prime minister coordinated cooperation between different bureaus and departments to launch new policies. The efficiency unit will be merged with the ITB, and there will be $700 million to create smart city. I can see that there is a top-down approach to make sure things happen, and demands from the public have been met as well. We see that the administration has shown determination to do something different. I think the biggest problem is how to realize them. When it comes to the executive framework, of course, the chief executive has done something to trigger a change. Currently, there is duplication in the structure, and different departments mind their own turf. Yes, she admitted that there are problems, and she meant to address these problems. However, how to make sure these changes are realized? The efficiency unit will be subsumed under the ITB, and there are a number of committees relating to innovation and technology set up. There are a number of committees, and on top of that, there are different departments, including OGCIO, the IT department, the science park, on top of many different departments. So how can you make sure that they don't just do their own things without any coordination? I'll wait and see. We have been saying that the administration would do a lot of consultancy studies. However, when it comes to real work, it's very slow. In March 2015, the last CE set up an advisory committee on innovation and technology. 2 years later, there was a report promulgated. It was as thick as over 100 pages. However, nothing was realized. When it comes to smart city, we've been criticizing the administration. 4 studies over a period of 5 years. Yesterday, the chief executive said that well, if there is something new they would like to do, and if they say that there are going to be consultancy studies, I would stop them, because you can simply go ahead and do it. I support it. It's not that, well, they can't do any consultancy studies on anything, but don't do studies on something you are determined to do. If you have the idea and the determination, it should be top-down and go ahead. In the past few years, well, around the time when the ITB was established, there has been a number of studies on INT. There has been changing of names of committees and change of composition. This time round, can we see that there is clear division of labor? The buck can't be passed because of duplication in structure. We have a number of secretaries sitting together. They can put their heads together to resolve problems. And there was a proposal of, within 5 years, increase R&D expenditure from 0.75 to 1.5% of GDP. But it's over a period of 5 years. Isn't it too conservative? And the other 8 major areas of INT, can there be clear indicators and timetables set? When we look at other countries, they face the same problem. So we don't just have a good word to say about Singapore. We identify their inadequacies and learn from it. They faced the same problem in 2014 when they first promoted Smart Nation. Over a period of 3 years, the Prime Minister said that progress was too slow. And there were comments in Singapore saying that there was no consistent standards. So priority and understanding of INT are different. There are no measurable goals. Departments either try to win glory or they just mind their own turf. There are some important projects, say for example, digital ID, sensors, e-payment. Singapore said that they themselves did not do too well. So we do need to learn from them. $10 billion will be injected into a university research fund, and there would also be concessionary measures on R&D expenditure, and also initiatives to attract overseas R&D organizations to come to Hong Kong. We're happy to see that. I think whether it will succeed depends on the details, and we're still waiting for them. Hopefully, when we will get more information before the budget, say for example eligibility, scope, application procedure, etc. There is something very important, and I hope the administration will pay attention to this. Attracting overseas enterprises to Hong Kong is important. However, you do need to understand what is important to them. Is it concessionary measures? My understanding from talking to them that the most important thing is market, that the R&D will be commercialized and there will be opportunities. So you need to remove barriers and create a market so that they can do business. I think to a large extent these are problems that the administration has to address, and it is quite lacking in policy support. I also noticed that when it comes to support to startups and SMEs in the policy address, there are some tax deduction initiatives. Well, yes, if you are already in business, you will benefit from the enhanced tax deduction. But when it comes to startups, you have to spend money on publicity, marketing, and recruitment. We are concerned that for local startups and SMEs, the tax deduction measures may not be enough for them. How can we help them? I propose that the administration should consider for local SMEs and startups, help them recruit and give direct subsidy to pay salary, which will achieve the same effect. And this will also increase the percentage of R&D of GDP, and it will also increase R&D expenditure in the private sector. In the policy address, the administration also says that they would encourage telecommunicators to extend optical fiber coverage to remote or rural villages. I've been asking for this for a very long time. I'm sure it goes without saying that in remote areas there is no optical fiber coverage. We keep saying that we have 99% broadband penetration. However, in a lot of areas, old districts in urban areas are not fully covered. We hope that this policy will be launched soon, and we'll see if there is enough assistance given to the sector. Another important point is mentioned in the policy address that the procurement policy and INT policies, well, I hope that it will not just go to the lowest bidder. Those from the accounting sector think that it's easiest to allow the bid to go to the lowest bidder. However, it may not enable procurement of the most updated services. And as a result, when it comes to application of technologies in different departments, they seriously lag behind. On top of that, I hope the administration will give us more details to encourage people to put more emphasis on innovation. It will address other problems in procurement. Say, for example, when it comes to procurement of INT, there is a liability clause. It's too stringent, which dampens their interest to submit a bid. And as a result, well, international companies don't want to use technology and bid for government contracts. The administration's been talking about innovation and technology. Different departments still require paper submission of bids. Can it be more environmental friendly? I'd also like to talk about some inadequacies I've identified. There is a lack of support to members of the public to learn about digital skills. Well, at the beginning of this year, there was a proposal of an injection of $1.5 billion into the Continuous Education Fund. I understand that there will be another consultation and it's not really open. It's under the purview of the LWB. That itself is rather interesting. Well, anyway, it's very important to our economic development. I hope that when it comes to expanding the scope of programs, the $1.5 billion should be spent more on training so that people will get a fuller grasp of use of information technology. Some people told me that a lot of people use this fund to learn to become connoisseur of wine. So is it really something that members of the public need most? In Singapore, there is a program called Future. This is a program to enhance the digital skills of citizens, which in turn promote economic development of the country. And it's not like in Hong Kong, you only are entitled $10,000 throughout your life, and once it's exhausted, it's gone. I think it should be relaxed, not by increasing the monetary amount, but after it's been exhausted, you will be given another amount. And if you want to enhance your skills, then you can use it, but you can't use it on learning to appreciate wine. It's something that you can do. I hope the administration will deal with it as soon as possible. There is another point I mentioned before, to review the obsolete pieces of legislation. On the 5th of July, there was a motion of mine that was passed. You can see in the policy address, and the administration said that when it comes to new problems of the economy, that barriers will be removed. However, there is still no mention of any details. You need to use a coordination office of policy innovation coordination unit to do something. You don't have to wait for motions to pass before doing something. I hope the CEO and secretaries will proceed immediately. Policies. There are numerous policies under the purview of those secretaries sitting here. Please do something forthwith. Yes, updating legislation is not easy, but I do believe that if they can enhance communication and make available more resources on new economies and cross-departmental skills, say for example, AI robots, automation, autopilot of driving, protection of privacy, and if they can conduct some thematic studies, it will be easier.
So the PA talks about opening up data.
I hope there will be some examples, but in the PA, you said that there will be 3 applications of the TD that would be combined to provide real-time transport information. However, we still have to think about ways and means to tackle the franchisees and also large operators who lack the incentive to provide such data. You have to face up to these. President, this year or early next year, the administration would be providing the blueprint for a smart city. I hope by that time the administration will draw up policy objectives for opening up data and also to implement ways and means to attract talents and also to allow quality to be maintained in the data opened up so that we can catch up with neighboring cities like Taiwan and Singapore. And another point, again, manpower resources. We have been talking about STEM in recent years, or STEM education. In the PA, I think you don't have new ideas or breakthroughs in this regard. On the one hand, you are investing $10 billion into a university research fund, but you don't give the same emphasis to primary and secondary schools. I think you are not doing enough about technology education in schools. You did give $100,000 or $220,000 to primary or secondary schools, which is a lump sum subsidy, but this could not resolve the resource and awareness problems of schools. The administration should also beef up the online learning subsidy scheme because it's drawing to an end. There is not enough support for students to buy a computer or to pay online fees. And if they want to do both, they would not have all the resources to do so. Which department will be responsible? Is it again the OGCIO, or is it that the Education Bureau and the SWD should take up more responsibility? You have to think about this. After the scheme draws to a close, please try to continue to do it, or else there will be social problems. And then for the IT sector, with regard to accreditation, there are still problems. The PA says there would be a 500 million special training scheme, but then you are really concentrating on R&D and also reindustrialization, so you have PhD holders. However, not all companies need PhD holders. Are you addressing the biggest requirement in the sector? There are many people who need retraining in the sector. As I said, I talked about the continuing education fund. And what we also need is, well, we have been talking about this for many years, and that is IT personnel do not enjoy a professional status. We'd like to introduce professional accreditation. We hope you will restart to do this. And then about the digital divide. The PA doesn't really touch upon it. In this section, we are talking about economic development, but you need the human resources. Without human resources, I think we are ignoring or neglecting possible future talents in poor families. In Singapore, they have the Smart Nation scheme, and they mentioned that the I&T projects must have regard for the feelings of elderly people and the users. And everything is intertwined. You can't say this belongs to a certain department or you just fork out some money for a fund. We can see that the Singapore government would install indoor dynamic sensors for about 90% of elderly people. This is also installed in public housing. But they have seen that the reaction might not always be very positive. As I was saying, I hope the administration when you promote INT, you should really first engage the community and also give rise to the need from the community first, so that they are forthcoming in accepting your work. Or else the people may say you are doing something for them which they do not need or want. And last but not least, I believe you should tackle interdepartmental policies. I think that is an important, or actually the most important part of the PA this time around. But of course, we have to look at the background. Why is it that so many proposals and recommendations have not been implemented? And why is it that there are no indicators of effectiveness? I hope there will be a mechanism set up and indicators set up so that officials and departments will know that they have to turn in their homework, and also they have to communicate better with the public. Only by doing so can we learn from our past experience and also the examples from overseas, so that we will not talk about INT for a few years and then we talk about something else. Rather, we should stand firm on this, and we must catch up instead of marking time only in the last 5 years. The Honorable Kenneth Leung. Thank you, President. This time around, I will be talking about Paris 97 to 103, and also tax policy 65 to 68 of the policy address. In 2015, there were 246,700 people working in the financial sector, and the sector contributes 16.7% to our GDP. If you look at our 4 pillar industries, the financial industry does have very high value addedness, and it has a lot of potential for development. First, I can say that I am sure that the PA has got the right direction for financial development. In my speech, I will be talking about the direction of Hong Kong's financial development, what kind of opportunities we have, what kind of challenges we face in the face of international development. And then I will turn to our tax policy, how it can contribute to our financial and economic development. If I could refer to the policy address, and it mentions that there will be this Financial Services Development Council, or FSDC. We had grave reservations about its setting up a few years ago because we did not know the jurisdiction and the operation of the FSDC. In the past 5 years, we could see that the FSDC turned out over 30 reports with great value for reference, and recently the administration is saying that FSDC would be turned into a limited company. I know that apart from doing studies, the FSDC doesn't have any jurisdiction to coordinate the implementation of policies by departments. I hope that apart from giving it more resources, the administration will allow the FSDC and the departments to have some synergy, so feasible proposals in the reports can be implemented. If the administration can provide resources to the FSDC will then also have to be accountable to the LegCo. Every year it should come up with a detailed report, and we want to audit its work performance every year. Its budget should also be approved by the Legislative Council, that is for sure. Now I'd like to talk about 2 study reports done by the FSDC which have great reference value and which, for the time being, I cannot see any timetable for implementing. One, the tax reform for private equity funds, and 2, the booking system study. In fact, these 2 studies are extremely important reports. I will be doing an analysis and state why these 2 reports should be implemented. Certainly, in the policy address, the administration said that in the next financial year it will issue green bonds, and to promote the setting up of green bond accreditation scheme which are in line with international standards. Well, by just launching 1 or 2 green bond issues, you will not allow Hong Kong to immediately become a financial center for green finance. Whether or not you are talking about statutory bodies or government departments or private bodies, we hope they operate with a green concept. And the criteria for building a green finance system is the responsibility of the administration. We have to set up some criteria which are aligned with our local or Asian needs, since we're a member of AIIC, and if we can also leverage on the demand for infrastructure along the Belt and Road countries, especially in terms of environment and green infrastructure. For us to have a green finance accreditation scheme which is recognized by the international community is a necessary condition. No matter how many green bonds you issue, if you do not have that accreditation scheme, you are not going to get very far. In the PA, it mentions that the SFC and the insurance authority would also do monitoring so that the sandbox mode will also be available to organizations apart from banks. I commend this, and I believe you should go for it at full steam. If you look at UK and Australia and their developments, apart from financial institutions, many SMEs and startups are eligible to take part in the Sandbox initiative. I understand that there must be a process to go through in order to set this up, but if you only allow traditional financial institutions to be incorporated into the Sandbox monitoring scheme, then SMEs and startups will not have an opportunity to develop new financial technology. I hope the administration will set up another Sandbox scheme so that eligible enterprises can also make use of the Sandbox project in order to embark on financial technology. I have talked about UK, Australia, and the administration can well take reference from those countries. Certainly, the PA also mentions that the Hong Kong Monetary Authority will launch a faster payment system next year. It is also said that it will also provide new payment channels for government fees and charges in order to align with the development of the sector. Now, do we want to go for a system with no currencies? Well, I actually thought about this and I tended to have reservations. In Scandinavia, for example, actually in 2010, they started not to use a currency. But then, in fact, we need a compatible society, meaning when a consumer or an investor chooses a payment method, he will be able to complete a transaction with convenience. That is what is an advanced society.
Now, we talk about cashless transaction. Does it mean that there can only be one mode of transaction, and which is very popular in the mainland, and that is mobile payment? And mobile payment is dominated by 1 to 2 companies on the mainland. Is this a good thing? No, not necessarily so. We have different payment systems, wireless contact systems, and more advanced systems than mobile payments are also being built. So if we just copy one payment system from another country, then it seems that we can't allow for diversified payment methods. Different consumers will opt for different payment method and different consumption mode. Another worrying phenomenon is that for this payment system, I am worried about the penetration rate. In the link malls, some stores may also use some payment methods which are mobile payment methods. But, for example, in our taxis, no single one taxi will accommodate an alternative payment mode. Now, every time the taxi drivers will give me a change of, say, 40 cents, 50 cents, or 60 cents. And some people said the taxi drivers normally don't give you back the coins, but I don't agree. Taxi drivers are honest people. Now, maybe you will take taxis once or twice a day, and by the end of the month, you will have a load of coins, and you don't know how to spend them. Mr. Norman Chan, 3 years ago, launched this mobile vehicle, which help people to deposit their coins, and then you will be have a value added to your octopus card. But there is only one mobile vehicle like that, and they're visiting different estates. So the penetration, whether you're talking about the retail market or our transport system, should go up, and we should do more in order to do that. I am not happy that taxis are not taking on alternative payment methods. The PA doesn't mention one other important thing, and I've been reminding, and that is the crowdfunding policy. Of course, we have the companies' policies, companies' ordinance and SF ordinance, and that governs some funding methods. But if you are familiar with the company law, you will know that if we are to raise funds from less than 50 people, you would not be governed by the company's ordinance. But what we are seeing is that for SMEs, micro enterprises, and startups, they are raising funds not only from 50 people, but rather 3,000 to 4,000 people. They are asking them to donate money or raise funds among them. And that is still allowed under the existing legislation. But say, if you are able to identify a person who is willing to invest in your company, and then you give them some securities or shares in return, give them some certificates. And if you would then be caught by the law under the SFO or CEO because you have not issued a prospectus. Maybe we're not talking a big amount. You raise funds from 1,000 people, everyone pays you 2,000, then that is not a big amount. For startups which have to engage in crowdfunding, this is a gray area. And there is no regulation which targets these gray areas. If you're just pure donation, that's no problem. That's fine. But if you give them something in return, like shares, coupons, or other rights like voting rights in the company, then you will be breaching the company's ordinance or the Securities and Futures Ordinance in relation to funding. So in Australia, Japan, and India, there are regulations saying that if you raise a fund exceeding a certain amount, and for each person, you receive from them less than, say, a certain amount for $500,000, and you are raising funds among the, say, the experienced investors, then these companies can be exempt from the regulation to issue a prospectus. So the government can think about this. Maybe this is not a straightforward piece of legislation. Consider what exemptions you can give to which companies raising funds. Why I'm so concerned about fundraising. Mrs. Lam talked about economic development, promoting diversification and INT. If you don't have the funds, how can you proceed with these initiatives? No matter how much talents you have, how much tax exemptions you give, there's no way you can do it if you don't have the fund. There is crowdfunding. We know for the Hong Kong Exchange, and they are now prepared to set up another board. And maybe to change the listing rules a bit so that the new companies can get listed more easily in Hong Kong. And that is one way of doing it. But for some companies, they want some private funds. As I said, For crowdfunding, how is the regulation going to be like? Well, if it is done well, it can help the startups to get the necessary resources. And at the same time, there are 3 phenomena which are worrying. In the PA, that is not mentioned. First, about the tax policies in Hong Kong. This year, we are launching some aggressive tax policies to help drive R&D and also SME development. But what worries me, I'm not saying this for the first time, that is that we have to abide or fulfill international obligations. We are a first-class international financial center. I will not compare Hong Kong against Singapore. I will not do what Charles Mok do or did. We are better in Singapore in many aspects. For the OECD, recently, well, rather in the past 3 years, for the BEPS, there are 15 principles to abide by. Well, we don't have to say be at the forefront at the international arena. We just have to be fulfilling all the basic requirements. The FSTB has worked very hard to make sure that Hong Kong's tax policies are in line with international practices, and that we are considered a good citizen in the international taxation arena. And at the same time, the OECD has been closely monitoring Hong Kong's tax policies, which ordinance has been passed by the electrical and has been implemented. And they're looking whether these are in line with the basic principles in BEPS. And one of the most important principles is ring fencing, and that is that we should not be dealing separately, local companies and companies registered overseas. We should treat them alike. We should not be giving tax concessions only to overseas companies or companies not controlled by Hong Kong people. So recently, we have passed the aviation leasing and also a corporate treasury center law, and we are now scrutinizing the open-ended fund company ordinance. Now, of course, that the letter bill is now being blocked in some way, is being delayed. Why can't we step up our communication with OECD to convince them that when we implement such tax concessions, we are not there to grab business from developing economies? We just want to be more competitive. We are talking about fair competition. So every time when we launch new tax policies, those have to be vetted by the OECD, then that would undermine the electrical's independence, autonomy, and dignity. And I hope that the government officials can talk more to OECD and collaborate with them more, so that before the tax measures are implemented, we would have forged a consensus with them. Now, talking about taxation, I know that Mr. Paul Chan, the FS, has set up this tax policy unit, and resources have been given to that unit. And one thing that I hope that the FS will look into is whether we need some professionals and representatives from the corporations to sit on the unit on a part-time or full-time basis. They should take part in this tax policy unit's work. Of course, we need a full-time civil servant to take on the actual work. But we do have a tax liaison unit now, and can we change the terms of reference of this unit, this liaison unit, so that this liaison unit can collaborate with the tax policy unit? And also maybe the two can be amalgamated so that the tax policy unit can play a more active role and respond better to the changes in the international tax environment and the economic needs of Hong Kong. Now, I have also mentioned this other thing to the CE is the business facilitation group. Well, the CE misunderstood me to be talking about the one under the CPU. I know that the CE said that the CPU will be revamped into an interdepartmental policy, innovation, and coordination unit. But I am the business facilitation unit that I was referring to should be under the FS, and it should be an interdepartmental unit to help overseas companies who would like to come to Hong Kong to operate. They can seek help from there, and they do not have to approach Invest Hong Kong, and then Invest Hong Kong will in turn have to liaise with different departments. So this business facilitation unit will provide one-stop service, helping companies to find office space, teach them how to comply with the legislation on labor and so on, so that this is a one-stop service for these overseas companies. So these overseas companies can approach this one-stop service unit, which can coordinate among government departments, so that these overseas multinational companies can establish a presence in Hong Kong. Going by my experience in the past, I've seen that many overseas companies have inquired about how to establish a company in Hong Kong, but unfortunately, many of them turn to Singapore instead, including international financial institutions, credit card companies. Well, this is my personal experience. I've also like to talk about a few major development directions. Now, riding on the Belt and Road Initiative and as a member of the IIIB, I think we should play a role as an international financial center and raise funds. Now, a year ago, when the UK was engaged in Brexit, I asked the government, have we seized the opportunities of Brexit to do something? What I meant is whether we can actually take on certain functions previously performed by Britain. We do not necessarily have to compete against them, but maybe after Brexit, Britain may not be able to do certain things, and can Hong Kong take those up? We haven't had a comprehensive plan, whether this is a crisis or opportunity for us. When there was Brexit, everybody was just thinking about whether the sterling pound would drop in value and whether we should buy property there. No, that should not be what we should be thinking. We should rather be thinking about what financial services we can take over from Britain. And is there any area where we can cooperate with the UK so that the UK can still keep its role as a financial center within Europe? We are both a competitor and also collaborator with them. Let me quote from Laura Cha, the chairman of the FSDC. She told me that Singapore, a week after Brexit, sent a team of government officials to the UK to visit the regulatory authorities and financial institutions to seek opportunities for collaboration. But we lack that kind of drive, and we are not responding well enough. All in all, President, I confirm and support the policies on finance and tax as outlined in the PA. Mr. Ronnie Tang. CE Carrie Lam delivered the new term government's PA 3 months in advance, and it goes to show that the government is great efforts to implement a new style of governance, new fiscal policy, and so on. And she was trying to think out of the box, and she's trying to use new approaches to promote economic development so that Hong Kong's development can scale new heights. The PA covers land and housing, economic development, tax reforms, INT, healthcare, hygiene, improving people's livelihood, and connecting with young people. If all can be realized, then we will see a better Hong Kong here. Now, in January, I spoke about the policy address then, and my suggestions have been responded positively by the government, including devoting more resources to the FSDC to plan for the financial future of Hong Kong, to promote Hong Kong's center as a renminbi offshore center, the mutual connect of financial products between Hong Kong and the mainland, promote fintech, and enhance tax policies, and also implement measures to support SMEs development. The government is attaching a lot of importance to SME development. Hong Kong is an international financial center, and we must invest in all areas to sustain our position as an international financial center. Now, Hong Kong is competitive in many areas. According to the 2018 Business Environment Report issued by the World Bank, among the 190 economic entities in the world, we are ranked 5th, and South Korea is 4th, one place ahead of. And in 2008, South Korea is ranked only 30th. Now, the government said in its press statement the next day, said that Hong Kong's ranking in the business environment has been on the top. That I've been always saying that if we don't advance, we will retreat. And this report has rightly pointed out that there is room for Hong Kong in helping startups to develop in Hong Kong.
There is another report, Global City Competitive Report, a competitiveness of property prices. This is a report done by the UN and the Social Science Research Academy of the mainland. Previously, the most competitive cities are mostly international financial centers. Nowadays, if you are to stay competitive, you will have to not just be a financial center, but one that is innovative. Out of 1,035, the top 10, there are 3 Asian cities, Tokyo and Beijing and Seoul. Hong Kong is not one of the 10. And for overall competitiveness, Shenzhen ranks 6, Hong Kong 12, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Beijing has entered the first 20. And lastly, there was the Swiss ranking. Hong Kong in one of the areas ranked 7, up by 4. However, Singapore for 5 years in a row ranked 1st. Of course, different institutes will measure competitiveness from different areas. On the 3rd of October, Mr. Paul Chen said to the World Bank doing business report said that, well, our ranking may not be high. However, still we need to reflect on ourselves and to see how we can improve. The direction of the policy address is correct. However, there needs some improvements. I will talk about it in 6 areas. First, we need to seize the opportunities brought by national development so that we will be able to elevate ourselves to a new level. There is a slow increase in global economy. Hong Kong is a small external economy. We can't just rely on ourselves. Mainland has been registering medium to fast economic development rate. There has been promulgation of Belt and Road initiatives and development of cluster of city in the Bay Area. These have brought great opportunities. When it comes to the Belt and Road initiatives, in the policy address, they said that there will be enhancement of manpower in the Belt and Road office, and before the end of the year, there will be agreements assigned to participate in the Belt and Road initiatives covering dispute resolution and financial services. There is also going to be an information sharing platform on Belt and Road so that enterprises will be better informed. The administration also said that there will be a cooperation mechanism put in place with the National Development and Reform Committee to enhance monitoring of implementation of policies. When it comes to the Bay Area, the policy address mentioned that the drafting of the framework of cluster of city development is more or less completed. There will be complementary development and cooperation of the three places to create a world-class cluster of cities. In the Bay Area, in areas of living, working, and businesses, there will be facilitating measures so that the Bay Area will become a quality living area for Hong Kong. The FS will become the chairman of the Steering Committee on Taking Forward Bay Area Development and Mainland Cooperation. The CMAB will also put in place an office to coordinate the work. Some people criticize the policy address, saying that it's just filled with studies. When it comes to Belt and Road area and Bay Area, we need to pick up our pace to make sure the work will come to fruition. If these measures have been implemented and if a cooperation with the mainland is realized, then our economic development will be sped up. We'll be able to ride on the fast development of our motherland. At the same time, we have to enhance our infrastructural development and to maintain our status as the international financial center. Facing keen competition, we need to be more proactive and to equip ourselves and enhance our competitiveness. And on top of that, we want to become an international renminbi settlement hub and an international asset management center. The administration said that there will be continuous development of various channels of financing. Regulatory regime will be updated so that Hong Kong will be developed into the first choice of financing platform of new economies. There are a number of measures. The FS will be the Steering Committee of Financial Development, which will then make recommendations to develop our finances. The Financial Development Council will be given more resources to strengthen its role as an advisory body. Green bond will be issued, and Mr. Kenneth Leung has already given details about the recognition scheme. At the same time, international investors can use Hong Kong to conduct their green financing. At the same time, there will be studies to study the expansion of channels of renminbi and including the southbound trading under the Hong Kong Mainland Stock Connect. There will be also new financial products put in place. There will be studies done on the faster payment system, and new payment systems will be put in place to pay government fees. I would like to supplement on 4 areas. First, I understand that resources given to the Financial Development Council is limited. I do believe that the FDC is the Financial Services Development Council will need more to strengthen its role. On top of that, it's responsible for manpower training and market development. I do hope that more resources will be devoted to strengthen its role. And in order to develop Hong Kong into the first choice of financing platform, we need to enhance our appeal so that companies will choose Hong Kong as their IPO platform. And at the same time, it needs to strengthen the status as an indirect financing. I need to declare that I am an advisory offer in the banking sector. Well, the organization I work for has branches here in Asia. We need to pick up our pace in the implementation of CDTAs and put in place agreements with Belt and Road countries. We need to make use of our ETOs to assist financial organizations to liaise and communicate with local governments. When it comes to development of offshore renminbi services, it seems that the policies are not sound. There are no new initiatives. Currently, the renminbi exchange rate has become stabilized. We need to seize the opportunity to strengthen our position as offshore renminbi settlement center. And in order to enhance the efficiency of customer due diligence of banks, the banking sector has looked into KYCU, Know Your Customer Utility. The administration said that they would also look into EID. So with personalized KYCU, it makes sense. KYCU is an important financial infrastructure. We need to learn from the experience of Singapore, and the government should take a more active lead. This KYCU should be put in place to meet the needs of our society. We need to review our competitiveness in terms of tax. In the policy address, there is a new fiscal philosophy. That is to make use of abundant surplus and plow it back into society. We need to also make use of in order to consolidate our position as financial center, we need to maintain our competitiveness. The administration has put in place a two-tier tax regime. First, 1 million, the tax rate is 8.25%. To a large extent, it keeps the merit of a simple tax regime and at the same time encourages enterprises to devote expenditure on R&D, which in turn will encourage enterprises to put more resources into R&D, train our manpower, which in turn benefits our society. There are different views. Some think that there is a huge financial burden, on civil servant, pension, healthcare, etc. And we have very limited types of tax and a very narrow tax space. So when it comes to tax reduction, we need to take into consideration sustainability. After the implementation of the two-tier tax system, if we can enhance our competitiveness and promote innovation and technology development, surely that it will bring more benefit than harm. When our economic development is good, then revenue to the for the government will increase. At the beginning, there was the tax policy unit set up, and in October, the chief executive has attended the summit on the new directions for taxation. With the changing landscape of global economy and challenges we continue to face, I do think that we have not reviewed our tax system in the past decade. This is a rare opportunity for us to review our tax system. Whilst enhancing our competitiveness, we need to ensure our financial sustainability. We also need to balance out the views of equity when it comes to tax payment. There should be a promotion on resources on R&D. We need to upgrade our economy and restructure our economy. There is a huge market on the mainland, and we have a very sound protection regime on the intellectual property, good financial system, and infrastructure. However, when it comes to R&D expenditure, it is lower than US, Japan, and Germany. The administration explained that Hong Kong is not like other countries. we don't have R&D expenditures related to national security, so that you can't make a direct comparison. However, the administration said that the R&D expenditure out of GDP will be increased to 1.5%. The administration said that private enterprises will be given incentives to increase R&D expenditure to ensure Hong Kong's global competitiveness and to tie in our development with that of the mainland. Surely these policies need our support. We have a very monotonous economic structure. We rely mostly on financial services, professional services, etc. And there is a very high operating cost if you want to do business. Innovation and technology will open up a way for youngsters so that they can get together with like-minded individuals to engage in INT, to create their own world. This will address problems with upward mobility and employment. This will also support Hong Kong's diversified economy and becomes a new drive of our economic development. I do hope that 1.5% will be realized. And the administration needs to think out of the box in order to address our land shortage problem. Hong Kong is an open, free economy. We welcome overseas investors, and we welcome other people to come to Hong Kong to buy properties. So Hong Kong property market is not just there to meet the needs of 7 million Hong Kong people. It's open to the needs of people in the world. Under the stimulation of ultra quantity easing policies, well, every year the residential property supply stood at 20,000. It's difficult to meet demand.
The tough measures can only bring in short-term suppressive effects, but the long-term need has to be addressed, and of course this is closely related to the supply of land. All these years, we have increased land supply in a very slow fashion. In 1980, and then we had 1061 square kilometers, and then 25 years later, we had 1106 square kilometers, or a jump of 4.2%. And it is said that in the next 10 years, there will be an increase of 160 square kilometers every year. Compared to Singapore, it is doing much faster. In 1980, there were only 618 km square, and then in 2016 there were 719 km square, and you can see that there was a jump of 16%, and land is an important factor for production, and in fact you can see that Hong Kong really lags behind Singapore. Mr. President, Hong Kong has developed into an international metropolis, and we are favored by international investors. The administration must supply land continuously to meet all the demands. But in the process of increasing land supply, you have to understand there are demands also for office, hotels, shops, apart from residential units. Or else, commercial properties will also fetch high prices because of a lack of supply. In the end, it will not be beneficial to Hong Kong's combined business competitiveness. When we talk about reclamation, rezoning land, urban renewal, or increasing density, there will always be a lot of concerns in society. Therefore, the administration has faced a lot of barriers in opening up land. Now you have set up the task force on land supply. I think it is a good start. But yesterday, they have been talking about nearshore reclamation, and I am sure these would meet up with opposition voices. How can we forge a consensus in society so we can fill the gap of land supply, that will be a real challenge for you. You must rise to the challenge and resolve the difficulties. Number 6, also the last point, Mr. President, Hong Kong must be forward-looking in looking at the overall competitive environment globally so we can draw up our own directions. I subscribe to Mrs. Carrie Lam's point that the administration should act as a promoter and a facilitator and also make the best use of the opportunities provided by the Hong Kong-Zhuhai, the Belt and Road Initiative and the Greater Bay Area. But we cannot wait. We should lose no time in grasping these opportunities, and the administration must rise to the challenge because, as you know, only the ready stand to gain. I hope you will do good coordination and get Hong Kong ready in all aspects so that we can enhance our competitiveness and so that we can nurture a new development trend and so will not again lose out when opportunities present themselves. Right now, artificial intelligence or AI is marching in an unprecedented direction. The AI era is developing right in front of our eyes. It will apply to medical, machinery, transportation, etc. And it's developing much faster than the human mind. And there will be a deep impact on our lives, our world, and it will be the new focus for world development and new engine of growth for the economy. But then there are uncertainties about AI too, and these will be our challenges. And I would say that in Hong Kong, the AI development in Hong Kong is still very much apart from that on the mainland and other parts in the world. I hope the administration will take hold of the overall situation and enhance the importance of AI in policy making so you face the challenge. Say, for example, how does AI impact on the workforce? How you can make use of this huge opportunity in order to enhance your governance and also to enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness. I hope there will be leapfrog developments in the end. I will support the motion of thanks. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Yu Si-wing. Mr. President, this is the first policy address of the CE, Mrs. Carrie Lam. Overall speaking, it is comprehensive, pragmatic, and it also addresses the needs of different groups. It also addresses the aspirations of different sectors, especially in the areas of housing, supporting SMEs and the elderly. There are practical measures, and she has also delivered a lot of her promises made in the election. Let us look at the tourism industry. The administration has been asked to set up the Tourism Commission. The CE said that because of objective barriers, this cannot be set up right away, but she has agreed to set up an interdepartmental, inter-bureau working group to be headed by the Financial Secretary. We understand that in early October, an interdepartmental high-level meeting has been conducted by the FS. He says that every department should work in conjunction with other departments to look at the problems faced by the tourism industry. According to the PA, the CED Bureau immediately released the blueprint for tourism development in Hong Kong. This is the first ever issued after the reunification of Hong Kong to the mainland. It has taken on board many of our views and it has drawn up development plans and also a timetable for the short, medium and long terms. I hope that the administration will not just talk the talk but really study in depth into different problems and issues so we can enhance our hospitality levels. And in developing convention and exhibition industries, Hong Kong ranks first as the MICE venue in the world. But we are facing huge competition from neighboring cities. The MICE industry has high potential for growth. It has high value addedness. It has also high innovative impacts. It can enhance the city image. It can also attract business tourists to come to Hong Kong because they are the high spending lot. In 2015-16, incentive travel and conventional travel amounted to 1.72 million people, and each spent over $8,400, which is 16% over the average tourists. So Shenzhen, Shanghai, Australia, and Singapore have positioned MICE industry as an important part of their economy. Say, for example, in Shanghai, they are now building a national venue amounting to 500,000 square meters, and also Shenzhen, another one with 300,000 square meters. But we are marking time only. In Hong Kong now, the biggest challenge is a lack of venue. In the PA, it is said that the 3 government buildings in Wan Chai North will be demolished and will be redeveloped, and it will be part of the expansion of Hong Kong CEC, and everything will be connected. And it will be the new wing to the existing Hong Kong CEC. Even if the 3 buildings would become part of the expanded Hong Kong CEC, and there would be more connected with the Hong Kong CEC, it will just add 23,000 square meters. And altogether, even with the superstructure, it will just add about 40,000 square meters to the Hong Kong CEC. Compared to what we saw about Shanghai and Shenzhen, there is still a big gap. We must lose no time in trying to catch up. Hong Kong has limited land resources. However, we still have the potential to increase MICE venues like the Asia World Expo in the airport. There is already the reservation of land for Phase 2 development. It is expected that it can provide another 100,000 square meters of exhibition venue. Phase 1 of Asia World Expo is seeing a growth in utilization. The utilization rate is at 70% every year, and with the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge being commissioned, there will be new source markets. And combined with the Lantau development plans, the commercial area in the north of the airport is now being developed. There will be commercial area up to 200,000 square meters, and also a hotel with 700 rooms. And also on Airport Island, we already have commercial facilities, and also the 3RS will be commissioned in 2033. By then, Lantau can become the second exhibition and convention center. And Phase 1 of Asia World Expo will be too small for the demand. I hope while you expand Hong Kong CEC, you should also start the feasibility study for Phase 2 development of AWE. And for the long term, you should continue to look at what our competitors are doing. Let us see what measures they are taking. And you must take strategic actions. And you must not give up the possibility of identifying venues in the urban area. You must have a certain scale so that, as Mr. Edward Yao said, we can allow convention and exhibition industry to become the leading industry in Hong Kong. Mr. President, in talking about heritage and green tourism, the PA says that it will embark on tourism products that are of Hong Kong and international characteristics, including cultural, ecotourism, and also green tourism. You will also develop green destinations. You will also work with the districts in order to promote sustainable green tourism. You will also provide the right transport complement for such destinations. This is not a new measure. However, you have not put enough emphasis on it. Last year, the Hong Kong TB spent $5 million in order to have a pilot on green tourism in Hong Kong. It's not a big amount. And also, we have not seen the effect. Recently, many Hong Kong-bound tourists come to our country parks. They go to the outlying islands as well. And also in our heritage sites, you have seen them visiting these sites. But when the industry in this process has found different problems. Number one, there is a lack of infrastructure. The Hong Kong TB has spent resources on promoting special and green and ecotourism. However, if we talk about the piers, transportation, accommodation, catering, signage, you have not done your job well. Let us look at East Ping Chau and Po Toi Island. They are beautiful sites. They have villages with special characteristics, and they are actually part of the World Geo Park. However, you don't even have infrastructure providing water and electricity on the islands. If you can't even satisfy the needs of the villages there on a daily basis, there is no way to talk about receiving tourists. If tourists are taken there, no matter what, you will just create a negative image for Hong Kong, and there may also be damage done to the local ecology. I hope the administration will show some determination in making improvements. Number two, recently we have seen news reports telling us that tourists are still going up our hills hiking when the weather is so bad and they lost their way and they were trapped. Therefore, when you promote green tourism, you must not neglect educating our tourists on safety. It also shows there is room for improvement in terms of green messages to our tourists. Now, there is no coordinated mechanism to issue safety awareness messages to tourists. They are scattered around LCSD, AFCD, and also the Hong Kong TB.
And there is no central or professional approach in disseminating the relevant information. There is no such platform. There are signages at country parks, but then they vary in terms of their quality and accuracy. So tourists are finding themselves at a loss when they visit these places. So the government must study into establishing a convenient or smart way of disseminating information. Thirdly, about illegal camping. Well, there is a homestay lodging. This is a trend, and on the mainland, people are camping in the wilderness as a form of tourism. Now, Hong Kong receives over 25 million visitors every year, and visitors have different aspirations for accommodation. Some people are operating illegal guest houses in the name of homestay lodgings. And for the campsites in Hong Kong, they have not been managed well. And some companies are organizing tours to Hong Kong and let the visitors camp on the wilderness. And this is something of concern. But then the netizens do not know about the actual situation in Hong Kong. They are easily misled into moving in these accommodation places. So there have been a lot of reports on such illegal activities, and I hope the government can enforce the law more. And in the long term, the government must come up with a more lenient policy on homestay lodgings on the countryside. There should be better management and regulation on campsites. Hong Kong has rich tourism resources in developing cultural, heritage, green and creative tourism. We do have advantages, and the government has all along attached importance to artificial tourist sports. Only just last year, we approved for the expansion of Disneyland at a cost of $10.9 billion. And I hope that the government should also provide the same support to the development of green tourism, because different districts come with different situations. So we must have a targeted approach. The government must identify sports with good access, and then the CDB should take the lead and come up with a plan and a budget, and the other policy bureaus should work together. If we don't have a bureau leading the initiative, other bureaus will be passing the buck around. So I think it's best that if CEDB can take the lead, and it can help provide, say, water, electricity, transport services, etc. in these tourist spots, and there should be dedicated policies. And you should also work more on publicity. Now, once the pilot scheme proves to be successful, then it can be extended to other districts or sports with potential in striking a balance between conservation and promoting rural districts. We should develop high-value added tourist sports. And promoting smart tourism, the CE says that we will develop smart city and we will promote smart tourism. And the electronic payment will be promoted. And also there will be multifunctional smart lampposts to be built. And at tourist hotspots, Wi-Fi facilities will be improved. At the suitable attractions and border control points, travel facilitation services will be provided, such as sending messages to inbound tourist mobile phones to provide them with information in public transport. This is just a start. And I think we must catch up with the changing times in our development. We have a pool of talents, funds, and good tourist spots, and we have just established the ITB. The government must have the commitment and determination to develop Hong Kong into the smartest cities in the region. We should overturn our traditions. We should start a technology revolution in Hong Kong. A smart city is closely intertwined with smart tourism. In smart tourism, we should not just take care of visitors. Instead, we should be developing this city smartly as a whole, and we should do more. So I have these suggestions on promoting smart city. First, we should use multifunctional smart lampposts as a platform to build a smart city. Now, smart lampposts have been launched in many cities around the world. Normally, they just collect data to assess the traffic volume, assess the air quality, the rainfall volume, etc. They are mainly to collect data. If we build a screen too, then the functions can be enhanced. For example, we can disseminate information, place advertisements there. And if we, the lampposts should also be fitted with Wi-Fi facilities, as the public has higher demand for information these days. Undeniably, the smart lampposts will play even more functions, and they will progressively replace the traditional tourist information dissemination channels. So for these lampposts, apart from the functions that I have mentioned, they should also provide information on shopping, living, etc. The 6 components of tourism, so that timely information can be provided to tourists and citizens alike. If smart lampposts are to come in with more functions, it will not be too difficult. What matters most is whether such information is provided in a timely manner of use and etc. Maybe we can also add in further functions like guides and guided tours. Say if tourists come to Hong Kong, they can get information from the lampposts, and they can also get some, say, electronic discount coupons for shopping, so that the tourism industry can also benefit. And the information from the lampposts can also be combined with information on our smartphones to form a common data platform, so that visitors can get the most updated information in Hong Kong. So they will get the impression that Hong Kong is developing very fast in our smart tourism. My second suggestion is that the government should strengthen cooperation with enterprises and enrich people's tourist experience. The government should be bold enough to think out of the box. It should cooperate with enterprises. Amsterdam, Copenhagen, and New York may serve as good examples. The government can collaboration between the government and enterprises can enhance the effectiveness, and the government can make use of the talents in the enterprises to get more innovative in its measures and enhance its service quality. And at the same time, risk can also be shared and effectiveness can be enhanced, and collaborative projects can be more sustainable. Now, enterprises may focus on a certain area and make innovations, and they would come up with more competitive products. Recently, the AAHK, in order to save manpower, study into using robotics to deliver luggages. And they have also launched RFID luggage tags, so that system, so that passengers can check the whereabouts of the luggages before they get to the luggage area. This is the first of its kind in the world, and it provides convenience to tourists and citizens. It can also help promote Hong Kong's image as a smart city. So the government must expedite its work in developing Hong Kong into a smart city. It must use social resources and resources of the enterprises. And we can also use the I&T Venture Fund. We invite experienced companies to help us out. We can make use of their advantages and to provide products with unique characteristics, so that smart tourism in Hong Kong is improved. My third suggestion is to ask the government to work together with the enterprises to establish the big data platform. In a big city, we should make use of the big data to help enhance the service quality. But then SMEs cannot collect data easily. So the government should take the lead. It should collaborate with professional bodies to establish a big data platform for use by SMEs. Young people should also be provided with more support for starting up their companies, and the tertiary industry in Hong Kong can be diversified. President, Hong Kong is a service-oriented economy. Tourism is related to other service sectors. The government has recently announced about the September retail index, and it has risen by 5.6% year on year. And the tourism numbers has risen by 4.8%. And in the past couple of years, if you look at the retail figures and the tourist figures, whenever tourists number dropped, the retail sales will also drop. Conversely, in the recent past few months, when tourist numbers rises, then retail volume will also rise. So tourist figures is very closely related to our retail volume. So it's not like what the government said, that the tourism takes up only 5% of GDP. The figure should be much higher because it has the rippling effect on other economic sectors. So the government should be more concerned about the development of tourism. It should understand more about SMEs' competitiveness, and provide them with timely support. I look forward that in the budget, there will be even more specific measures to help support the tourism industry. So I speak in support of the motion of thanks. Mr. Alvin Yang. Thank you, President. The CE assumed office in July, and she said that there will be a new style of governance. At the time, the Civic Party noted a footnote. We said that we will closely monitor her. We would observe what she is going to do. Now, in September, we found that it's just a new wine in an old bottle when what meant by a new style of governance. If there is no democracy, there is no stability to the society. The CE has assumed office for half a year. The latest PA shows that Carrie Lam has devoted efforts in improving livelihood, but then the new government is helpless in mending the rift in the society. And the government is just turning to livelihood issues since there is no improvement in our political system. My colleagues will be speaking on different areas of the PEA, and for now, I will be talking about the INT in PEA. I will be focusing on opening up of data. In June, the UK announced a chart on opening up of data of different governments around the world. In the latest assessment, Hong Kong ranked 24th, and the Taiwan ranks first, which shares a similar culture as ours. And the chart lists 15 factors. For example, election results, registration of companies, water quality, weather forecast, etc. Apart from comparing whether such data are made available and open, they will also be comparing the format, whether they can be downloaded easily, is available free of charge, etc.
In a lot of people's mind, or to a lot of people's perception, Taiwan is a little bit more backward than Hong Kong. How come it can rank first with a score of 90, whereas Hong Kong only scored 51? Let's look at the details. When it comes to government procurement, statistics, and air quality, we score a full mark. When it comes to company registration, land ownership, and government expenditure, it's 0. Government officials may ask, when it comes to company registration, land ownership, you can do land search. It's the information is in the public domain. How come that we score 0? If that is what you think, my advice to government officials and Carrie Lam is you need to learn what is open data. In the policy address, the CE said that they will speed up open government data for the development of a smart city and innovation and technology, because it will serve as raw material. Well, what is raw material? If you think that you scan government information and upload them on the internet, that means open data, then let me tell you, that is just crude data, because if you want to turn them into Excel and PDF, it won't help with the development of applications. I'm sure that the ITB officials will understand what I'm trying to say. And this won't help with development of a smart city. I hope that development of smart city is not just a slogan, and they should do something about development and improvement of livelihood. Let me give you a trivial example that will fully illustrate my point. Drinking fountain, I'm sure you all know what it is. The administration promotes environmental protection and the reduction of use of plastic. So if Alvin Yang brings my own water bottle, where do I find water? And indeed, we have an application that will help you find water supply. the app developer goes all over Hong Kong to record the location of a drinking fountain and put them in an app. Well, the government has the information. They know where these drinking fountains are, and it doesn't involve privacy. How come the data is not open to facilitate development of apps? The government may say, we have the information is uploaded, but if I, Alvin Yeung, wants to go to find the location of a drinking fountain, I have to go to the LCSD website to see if there are any drinking fountains in a particular park, and if we can find the information, it won't tell me the exact location. I have to look for it inside the park. And if you call this open data, this really is something that a Neanderthal will do. Well, what about Taiwan? Say, for example, a drinking fountain. All drinking fountains in public areas in Taipei are recorded with information of the coordinates, API in API format, as well as opening time. And since it is in API, it facilitates development of apps. So it's not like the Hong Kong app where the developer will have to go all over Hong Kong to find the information. Well, this is it may seem like a trivial example, but the information held by the administration can help a lot of people. I hope that they can apply this example to in their mind so that they'll realize how useful open data is. Livelihood issues is not just about infrastructure. It's down to minute details. However, the administration think that, well, we have the data, we can develop an app, then we will turn ourselves into a smart city. If you open data, there will be people who are interested to make use of the open data. It's just like, well, they use building blocks to build structures for Hong Kong people. Why don't you make available these building blocks for Hong Kong people to make something that fits their need? Well, there will be huge resources devoted to innovation and technology. I, of course, hope that it will be done. But I want to say that what needs to be open is not just data, but the minds of the government as well. Say, for example, well, you can go to Gov Hong Kong and you realize that there is scanty information available. Then you know that when it comes to opening data, the administration is rather conservative. I hope that next time when we debate on a policy address, Hong Kong would have caught up with Taiwan, and the administration would cast its conservative mind away to make available all data necessary for Hong Kong people to use them. I so submit. Mr. Frankie Yik. Mr. President, Mrs. Carrie Lam, the Chief Executive, delivered her maiden policy address. She wanted the policy address to become Hong Kong's starting point in order to build a better Hong Kong. That's her promise. Looking at Hong Kong's recent development, and if we compare them with neighboring cities, we do lag behind. The Liberal Party hope that the administration would do more so that the promise will be delivered. In March, in the government's report by the State Council, they make announcement of the Bay Area. It covers Guangdong, Macao, and Hong Kong 9 cities. And is, well, there is the Tokyo metropolis and the Greater LA, and also another and the New York metropolis. This we have something similar. The Steering Committee on Cooperation with the Mainland will be renamed Steering Committee on Taking Forward Bay Area Development and Mainland Cooperation. There will be Bay Area Development Office set up to coordinate planning of Bay Area development. This shows the importance attached to this. Out of the 10 busiest ports in the world, 3 of them are within the Bay Area. There are still 5 civil airports. In order to avoid vicious competition, the administration should ride on the opportunity in the formulation of Bay Area development to tell the central authorities what role Hong Kong can play and how Hong Kong's aviation, logistics, shipping, and tourism development can complement the development of the other cities on the mainland, and that we can work together with them to develop the Bay Area. In the Bay Area, it covers 60% of global population, accounting for 30% of global GNP. In the policy address, the administration said that they would, as soon as possible, sign an agreement with the NDRC on the development of the Bay Area. We fully support that. Aside from financial services, we can also make use of a single window to create seamless integration to enhance our logistic efficiency. It is reckoned that in 2018, single window will be extended to all over the country. However, we have to wait till the second quarter of next year to launch the single window initiative, and we have to wait till 2020 or 2030 for it to be fully implemented. So the single window system development should be sped up, and you need to talk to the mainland authorities as soon as possible to link our single window system with that on the mainland, so that there will be an electronic system in place, and Hong Kong can be used as the platform to enable the mainland to go out. And and we can also tie ourselves with a single window system with ASEAN cities in terms of free trade agreements, because this will help Hong Kong's logistics and shipping trade. Well, on top of that, there is acute demand when it comes to logistics and airmail. There is an proposed expansion of airmail center. Well, the administration should make sure there is sufficient land for its development. If you want to succeed in online trade, then you need to make good use of time for goods to be delivered to your customers. And we need a facilitation of customs clearance. We need to position ourselves as an important regional distribution center. Overseas sellers would like to cooperate with local distributors or logistic companies so that they can have their goods then delivered to customers safely. At the same time, online trade covers different goods. It also includes fresh provisions as well, so we need more land for refrigeration and storage. In order to respond this demand, the administration would implement what they have proposed in 2015, that is to make use of the site in Kwai Ting. And back in 2012, they have earmarked 10 hectares of land in Tuen Mun West, 3.2 hectares of land finally would be launched in the first quarter of next year. The remaining 6.8 hectares is still unused. In this regard, the administration is too slow. In the past 7 years, they have only made use of 6 hectares of land. Last time it was 2 hectares 4 years ago. With shortage of supply of land cost has been increasing, which in turn affects Hong Kong's competitiveness when it comes to the logistics sector. So all land in the pipeline, the Area 40, Area 46 in Tuen Mun, Hung Shui Kiu, Yuen Long South, and the Hong Kong, the artificial island of the Hong Kong port area of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge should be put to good use for the development of commercial logistics development. I asked the administration to consider this. In the Liantang Hengyunwei boundary facilities, and in the north, in NT North, there should be land earmarked for logistics use. In the future, goods clearance will be in Liantang Hengyunwei and Shenzhen West. Well, the inbound approach channel has been widened to 17 meters so that larger cruise ships will not be affected. However, when it comes to restrictions of the Tingma Bridge, it has not been changed. To tie in with this change, ocean-going vessels have switched to other ports instead of Hong Kong. From the water surface to the bottom of Tingma Bridge is 62 meters. Taking away the restrictions, there are still 9 meters for adjustments. If this is not relaxed, this will not be conducive to long-term sustainable development of our logistic industry. So when it comes to relaxing the height restriction of Tingma Bridge, the administration will do something. In order to consolidate Hong Kong's Hong Kong's position as international logistics center, the administration should make use of ETOs to strengthen vessels registration services and encourage owners to incorporate in their agreement using Hong Kong as a dispute resolution center, and also to strengthen Hong Kong's position as Maritime Arbitration Center. This covers many different practitioners, say for example, legal, maritime, logistics. For aircraft leasing, the tax concessions can be applied to vessel leasing as well, in order to attract more vessel owners and trade to come to Hong Kong. In the last term of the government, there was a board established, but when it comes to enhancing Hong Kong's position as a port, the function of this board is lacking.
The Maritime Ministry still would like to see the setting up of a statutory board with policy-making powers so that it can really launch effective maritime policies in order to take forward our maritime industry development. And this will also enhance Hong Kong's status as an international maritime hub. Thank you, President. Ms. Starry Lee. Mr. President, Mrs. Carrie Lam has taken up the post for a few months already. On the 12th of October, Mrs. Carrie Lam announced her first PA, and her team has been very dedicated to their work since the assumption of office. This is for all to see. After the release of the PA, there has been positive feedback in society. Yesterday, there was the poll study result of Hong Kong U. In October, and after the release of the PA, there has been a rise of 2.4 scores for the CE, reaching 62 scores. And as to the overall performance of the team and also overall situation in society, all recorded rises. And when I went to the districts, I feel the same thing. After assumption of post by Carrie Lam, there has been an improvement in the atmosphere in society, and people all believe that the CE is a tough worker, and we all expect that her team will waste no time to work with her and improve our economy and implement livelihood policies. All in all, whatever is written into her election platform should be delivered, and what is promised in the PA should be implemented as soon as possible. Mr. President, when she was elected, a reporter asked me how I would view the new term of government. I said, in the area of ability of resolving social conflicts and implementing policies, I would have every confidence in the CE, and indeed she did not disappoint. If you look at the PA, you will be able to see many of such examples to show that the CE has a kind of breakthrough in her mentality to implement public policies and to resolve social conflicts. For example, introducing a two-tier profits tax to reduce the rate to 8.25% for the first 2 million of profits, and also the very generous non-means tested public transport fee subsidy. This is a big departure from previous public finance management, and these have indeed been launched, and that goes to show the new mentality of the new team of government. The DAB is of the view that the PA has taken on board many different views, and it has shown the resolve to bring in new policies. This should be commended. It has taken up many different views of political parties, including the DAB, in taking forward our economy and in addressing livelihood issues. It has also given new financial commitments, say, for example, new education, recurrent expenditure, and also much more support for R&D and I&T. The PA also shows that the CE applies new mindset to resolve old problems that have been with us for a long time, say, for example, high transportation cost and also the ladder for house or home owning. The PA also emphasizes concerns about our youth. It proposes the starter home scheme and also co-sharing of space for young people, and also to increase the amount for the CEF and also university hostel places. These would address the concerns of young people, and also in different livelihood issues. There are also targeted measures, and the disadvantaged in society will also be helped. The proposals in the PA are very down to earth. Say, for example, for those who have rare diseases, and also there are students with special education needs, and also to tackle the broadband web serving for remote residents, and also deregulating the procedure for retrofitting our markets with air conditioning, etc. Also, the CE has said that there will be a new role for government, and we have every expectation of it being delivered. It is said that the administration should act as a promoter and a facilitator. Given a new economic situation, when we face serious competition around us, and also if you look at other people's government, they are big and proactive governments. Mrs. Lam and her team have said that the administration should also be proactive in promoting the growth of our economy. We believe it is right, and we must have a new mindset before we can achieve a breakthrough. But we also hope that while you will be proactive in taking forward the economy, the CE and her team must also tackle the deep-seated conflicts in society. There are many new measures in the PA, but after the release of the PA, we have heard many views from the public and some criticism, especially with regard to increasing land supply and also difficulty in home ownership. The public expect the team to be even more proactive and more committed and to take more bold measures. And in taking care of the elderly, you should take another step forward. You should lower the non-means tested eligibility for OAA to age 60. And also for those who are waiting for an RCHE, tell them how much longer they have to wait. If you have to make promises, you must provide dedicated space for use as RCHEs. And in terms of education, there are new resources. But apart from that, many residents would like the administration to take a bold look at the inadequacies of our education system in tackling the information age. We are now only disseminating knowledge and morality to our students. But recently, there are these phenomena that sadden us. Some young people actually support the use of violence, and some use very insulting remarks against others. Some use foul language quite easily, and these are very saddening. It makes us reflect on the education system in our society. This is the first year of Mrs. Lam's rule or her position as a CE. And this is only the first PA, and I cannot possibly expect her to tackle all these very complex and diversified problems in society at one go. However, I hope she and her team have heard these concerns and perhaps they can give a positive response in this debate. Mr. President, I can feel that there is resolve on the part of Mrs. Lam and her team in resolving social problems. But to me, the biggest challenge for Mrs. Lam is to be some person safeguarding one country, two systems. As she said in the PA, this is the 20th year of our reunification with the motherland, and we must allow one country, two systems to continue to develop. Mr. President, we all understand that as the CE, Mrs. Lam has a very important role. I have been looking for her thoughts on this matter. She says that 20 years ago, we have been leveraging on the mainland, we have been facing the world, and we have maintained our advantages. This goes to show that one country, two systems is the best arrangement for Hong Kong, that this is something that can be done, and this has won the hearts of the people. Therefore, every person in Hong Kong should have the responsibility to ensure that here in Hong Kong, one country, two systems advances in the right direction, the obligation to say no to any attempt to threaten our country's sovereignty, security, and development interests, as well as the duty to nurture our next generation into citizens with a sense of national identity and affection for Hong Kong and a sense of social responsibility. I agree that she has touched upon this point, and Mrs. Lam has said that everyone with a passion for Hong Kong has the responsibility to ensure that in Hong Kong, one country, two systems advances in the right direction. But as the CE, since you have a special role and a very important role, you are also the one safeguarding one country, two systems. So what are your plans to do this? I believe many Hong Kong people would like to know that. Therefore, as the one safeguarding one country, two systems, I think the CE has not said enough in the PA. She has not shared too much of her thought in this regard. I believe this is one of the inadequacies of the PA. She was the official spearheading the constitutional reform in the last term of government. It took 20 months, and there was Occupy movement and anti-Occupy movement, and there was also the Mong Kok riot, and also there were the talk of independence, etc. There were many articles taking stock of Hong Kong after 20 years. I cannot believe the CE has not pondered this point. It's just that this is her first PA, and she might not have chosen to share her thoughts on this front with us. But I expect her to share with Hong Kong citizens her thoughts about this important issue of safeguarding one country, two systems. How can the CE play her role? I believe in the days to come, Mrs. Lam must do her best to increase the mutual trust between the central authorities and Hong Kong, and also the interaction between the central government and the Legislative Council. If you ask me how we can build trust between the central authorities and Hong Kong people, how can we promote interaction between the central authorities and the Legislative Council? That is a very broad topic. I don't think I should go into the details here. I will stop here. I will say that I support the motion of thanks. Ms. Claudia Mo. Thank you, President. It is said that this will be the first time the motion of thanks would be supported in a matter of 9 years. I hope Mrs. Lam will not be complacent. It is just because 6 members from the pro-democracy camp have been disqualified. Ms. Starry Lee says that today we should have a ceasefire and we should support measures that will benefit our economy. But then there are many white elephant projects. You call them infrastructural projects, but then they are all for integrating Hong Kong and the mainland. You are generous, but you harm Hong Kong in the process. We don't have a lot of benefit from that. Here, this session is about having a diversified economy. This is so ironic because Hong Kong's economy is facing the threat of mainlandization. You call this a capitalism and a free economy, but the people who can put in the highest bid will win. And red capital is buying up Hong Kong. Hong Kong is now fully controlled on all fronts, and Hong Kong will disappear. Just look at land sales in the last few years. 80–90% of the land has gone into the hands of red capital. And Mr. Li Ka-shing has just sold an important building in Central. We know that the buyer has also got red capital in its portfolio. Many mainlanders take suitcases of cash into Hong Kong. I don't know whether they are money laundering, but this is what we have seen. Talking about the retail sector, let us look at McDonald's. It is now held in by red capital. We used to have the first port in the world. Now look at Shanghai, Ningbo, and Shenzhen. They have all superseded us. And the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge. And then the AA will build another building with a direct access to the mainland using $3 billion. Did it ask us? And the XRL Express line, you use the co-location approach and it damages our rule of law, and you say there will be huge economic benefit. And also there is a reinterpretation of the basic law. And then the Hong Kong Hang Seng Index still goes up. It is because the constituent stocks are, many of them are H shares. In other words, the Hang Seng Index is not the confidence indicator of Hong Kong businesses. You also talk about One Belt, One Road, the Greater Bay Area, etc. So Hong Kong has become the mainland. Hong Kong is being mainlandized, and Hong Kong will disappear very soon. I must also mention green finances. You talk about INT. There are retired professors who are patriotic. They say you can use your mobile phone to pay for prostitution. This is quite vulgar, and he was referring to INT.
In Hong Kong, a lot of shops in Hong Kong are not resorting to the use of Alipay and other payment methods because, number one, the shops will not like to use it because they don't want to disclose their transaction volume. And they have to pay intermediary fee in any case, so why do I have to pay you? And they said that credit cards are being used, but then credit cards are issued by big banks, and they have a confidence in big banks. So it's all a matter of trust. So we don't want our information on where we shop, how much we pay, to be disclosed to untrustable or non-trustable companies. Now, you said that the government will try to help people in remote villages to go online. Well, but look at what's happening in the city. In the Chinese tenement buildings, the Wi-Fi services are very costly and the speed is very low. But then the government said it's all a commercial activity, and if the internet operators don't serve that area, there's nothing much we can do. Well, the right to go online is a basic human right in today's world. You talk about promoting green economy, you will subsidize electric vehicles. You said environmental protection is good, but then in terms of the parking spaces, you are demolishing the car parks, and the cars of the big buses are parked on the street side. They take up 2 to 3 lanes on a carriageway, and some of the cars of the buses are circling around, and they're emitting a lot of polluted air. And Dongjiang River, well, please. you said that this is not being included here. In the past decade, we have paid an excess of $4.5 billion, and we are paying a fee much higher than Shenzhen and Dongguan, and we don't know why. And it's not the case that we pay for whatever volume we use. This is a package, lump sum deal. But you are squandering money, and in the past decade, we have squandered $4.5 billion. And including this year, the amount may well go up beyond $5 billion. And you spent the money, but you are not creating a green economy. Why are we squandering the money? A lot of the water has been has flown back to the sea. For Latin America or North American, do you know how the drought situation is like? They have you use oil drilling equipment to get water from deep underground to irrigate the orange fields. So the government is not doing anything in the long term in promoting green economy. Thank you. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Mrs. Carrie Lam delivered her first PA. She used the theme of We Connect for Hope and Happiness. And this PA encompasses the issues of concern to the community in terms of tax reform, encouraging INT, R&D, and rebuilding the housing ladder for Hong Kong people, helping young people develop. There have been breakthroughs in all these areas. And it also shows a new style of governance and new mindset of the government. And the BPA and I will support this motion of thanks. And I also look forward to government officials joining hands with the society to implement the various measures in the PA to promote Hong Kong's economy and livelihood. We are facing competition from around the world, and the business sector has been urging the government to improve our business environment and enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness as a whole. The PA advocates a two-tier profits tax system, and the first 2 million profits of business companies will be slashed from 16% to 8.5%. I think it's a pragmatic and aggressive approach. And many SMEs are pleasantly surprised in anticipation of increased rate of interest rate in the U.S., and face of rising rentals and operating costs, Hong Kong's business environment faces a lot of challenges, and the SARG should strive to lessen the burden of SMEs, try to stabilize the economy and promote employment. Madam Deputy, the last tax review was done in 1976. It was been 41 years down the road, and the economic environment around the world has seen major changes. Hong Kong has prided itself on its low and simple tax regime, but our neighboring cities like Taiwan and Singapore are using all sorts of tax concessions to try to compete against us in talents. And Hong Kong is losing our advantages in terms of our tax regime. The government has established a tax policy unit to review Hong Kong's tax regime's competitiveness and the very narrow tax space in Hong Kong. I think this is the right direction. And I hope that the government can have an open mind and take on new mindset in face of the new environment globally. And the government and the community should not be viewing the business recommendations with a conspiracy theory. Now, we talk about the two-tier profits tax system. People will consider whether a company will try to establish a separate company to evade tax. But if you are to establish a company, the procedure is very complicated. So in order to just save a small sum to evade the tax, I don't think that companies would like to do that. The General Chamber of Commerce has all along asked for concessions for losses. Earlier, FSDC released about a report on recommendations for tax concessions of losses suffered by companies, and they are recommendations that are in line with the HKGCC's. I think this recommendation can attract business groups to establish regional headquarters and business in Hong Kong, and I think that should be studied. The government said that for fear of companies evading tax, they were not studying. And the IRO Article 61A will ensure that anyone evading tax will be penalized. And we should not be skirting around the problem. If we can resolve the problem or the complication through amending the regulation. And I'm happy to see that there will be extra tax concessions for R&D efforts. For new companies, some of them are startups. Many of them are startups, and the new tax concession will help promote these startups to engage in R&D. But for Shenzhen and Singapore, they do have tax concessions to attract R&D companies. For example, there will be tax concessions for R&D and also revenue from patent. In Japan and Singapore, they even have various tax incentives to attract overseas investors and also to promote their strategic industries. And I think Hong Kong should catch up fast, including introducing new legislation amending existing laws to help startups develop in Hong Kong. Now, as for mid and long term, I think the government should reduce profit tax to 15%. So that Hong Kong's tax regime is even more competitive. The FS in the summit on tax last month said he would not reduce profits tax. I think it's too premature to say that because the world is changing fast these days, and if people are trying to compete against us, we should not stay complacent. And we will not be seeing the forest for the tree. And if you do that, it will be like what the CEE said. It's not, you are not embracing an open attitude for all kinds of recommendations. So we should not be seeing not seeing the forest for the tree. So FS, please consider again our recommendations. As for the expansion plan for the convention center, well, we've been hearing about it all the time, but nothing is in progress. I think it's a good approach to demolish the 3 government buildings to make way for expansion of convention center. The sector has been asking for more convention space, and because of the shortage of space, Hong Kong CEC has declined the requests for staging exhibitions in Hong Kong. So it's a pressing task that we should expand the convention center. I hope the government and the HKTDC can consult fully on their plans to expand the convention center to ensure that the expansion plan can bring the maximum economic and social benefits. Next, I would like to talk about the Belt and Road Initiative on the Bay Area and the government's work. Now, President Xi Jinping has talked about the Belt and Road Initiative. It covers 60-odd countries, covering over 60% of the world's population and 30% of the world's GDP. And for the Bay Area, it's also an important component of the Belt and Road region. It will bring unprecedented opportunities for Hong Kong. The PA says that the Hong Kong government will dovetail with the Belt and Road Initiative, that will strengthen the manpower. By the end of this year, it hopes to sign an agreement with the NDRC, a full cooperation agreement for Hong Kong to participate in the initiative. We welcome that. If we want Hong Kong business to do more in Bay Area, the government must closely liaise with the mainland authorities. They must be bold in coming up with innovative suggestions. For example, to try out new plans on a pilot basis in the Bay Area. Now, if a person stays in the mainland for 183 days, it will have to pay mainland tax. I suggest that the mainland authorities can model after the border cities in the European countries, and allowing Hong Kong residents working in the mainland to pay only Hong Kong tax. And the government should also review Article 39E of the ILO so that Hong Kong businessmen who provide machinery, industrial equipment to the mainland can also enjoy the tax depreciation allowance in Hong Kong. Now, the HKGCC members pin high hopes on the Bay Area, and with the support or backing of the mainland authorities, Hong Kong, with its own advantages, say in legal, accountancy, R&D, arbitration, etc., can provide professional services to the relevant areas. I hope that the government can study with the relevant stakeholders to explore more opportunities in the Bay Area through SEPA, so that more business opportunities can be identified. We hope to be able to come up with a skeleton key, and the big doors and the small doors will be opened alike. Every one can conduct their business smoothly. And also the Hong Kong section of the XRL, there are still controversies over the co-location arrangement, and the Shenzhen authorities are very aggressive. And Mainland Institute is embarking on a study on enhancing the value of old industrial areas in Shenzhen, and they will try to maximize the benefits to be brought about by the Bay Area. We should not spend any more time on internal strife or infighting. We should pool our collective wisdom to see how we can give full play to our advantages to support the Bay Area development.
We need to enhance our advantage of development faced with competition. We need to enhance our advantage on logistics and financial services. We play an important role in the Bay Area. We can ride on the gravy train of economic development of the mainland, but we need to have a new line of thinking. We have to think out of the box. I hope that I can promote communications and exchange between the business sector and the administration. Mr. Wong Ting-kwong. Thank you, Madam Deputy. In Mrs. Carrie Lam's maiden policy address, she talked about improving the business environment and support given to SMEs. These are in greater detail than the previous term of government, and they are more pragmatic as well. She made a promise in her election campaign. She said she would implement two-tier profit tax regime. For the first million, tax rate will be reduced to 8.25%. She has made good this promise. SMEs are very sensitive when it comes to tax expenditure. A lot of SME owners are stressed because of this burden. The first $1 million will see profits tax halved. This will greatly benefit SMEs. And for those who aspire to start their businesses and for enterprises who would like to enhance their INT, in the policy address is published that for the first $2 million spent on R&D, there is going to be tax reduction 3 times more. I hope that these measures will be implemented as soon as possible. I would like to emphasize one thing. When it comes to difficulties faced by SMEs, it seems that the administration still fails to grasp what these are. The use of R&D and efforts on NAPA training, the SME needs more support. If they are to recruit people who are conversant with the use of new technology, it's no way easy. I hope that the administration will put in more resources to help enhance their incentive to use innovation and technology. In recent years, there is a slow economic growth. Our pillar industries, because of international global economy, reached a bottleneck. We are in a stage when we need change. The motherland proposed the Bay Area Development and the Belt and Road Initiative. These are new opportunities given to Hong Kong. I believe that if we can seize the opportunity and tap into our advantage of our internationality as well as our sound service industry, will be able to make good use of these opportunities. The DAB expects the administration to make plans so that we will be part of the new economic drive. When it comes to exchange, economic integration in the Bay Area, we know that they've always been very closed. If we deepen our cooperation, we will be able to benefit from the new initiatives. We will be able to enhance our functionality and our position. In the policy address, the chief executive said that this month there will be a free trade agreement signed with ASEAN. In the future, there will be more bilateral or multilateral liaisons with the mainland and other places. Say, for example, FTAs with Belt and Road countries, agreements to protect investment, as well as CDTAs, comprehensive agreements to avoid double taxation. DAB also proposed to the administration to sign more favorable agreements with Belt and Road countries. I hope the administration will focus resources to identify 5 to 10 Belt and Road countries with great potential and set up ETOs there. They will help to identify opportunities for Hong Kong people. There should be organization to take youngsters from Hong Kong to have exchanges with Hong Kong enterprises in Belt and Road countries, so the youngsters will understand the development potential of these Belt and Road countries. And in order to seize the opportunity of the Bay Area development and to attract Hong Kong people to go to Bay areas, the restriction of 183 days stay should be relaxed. Say, for example, on a pilot scheme, people who cross the border to work can pay tax to the mainland at the rate of a Hong Kong tax rate. Currently, Hong Kong people will have to take up permanent residency before they can apply for identity documents. A lot of eligible Hong Kong people find it inconvenient. The DAB proposes that the administration should talk to mainland authorities to try to get Hong Kong people who take up permanent residence on the mainland to get identity documents so that they would find it easier when it comes to work, live and study. It will also facilitate integration. Next year, the Hong Kong MA will launch the faster payment system. Banks and store and payment facility companies will be able to have real-time payment settlement. This facilitates personalized payment. This also encourages the development of a flexible payment system on the retail level. I'm happy to see the faster payment system put in place. This will promote electronic payment and smart living. I also asked the Hong Kong MA when they work on details when it comes to entry to the system, they would bear in mind compliance cost and operational cost. And they also need to put in place sound security systems. And on top of that, they need to target people who are middle-aged, people who are older when it comes to publicity, so that they will know they would use this system. In the medium and long term, the DAB urges the administration to dovetail the work with authorities of the Bay Area. They should implement and study on artificial intelligence and use of innovation and technology to enhance efficiency in commerce and industry and help the sector to find new ways of development. Say, for example, payment systems that are highly linked. They can set up a regional platform to drive down transaction cost. And there is also another area. Well, we do understand that the policy will be put in place. I asked the administration to fully consider the burden on SMEs. Well, relations between employees and employers, are they on opposite sides or are they actually on the same side? This is actually affected by the stance that government takes. Currently, the administration inclines towards asking employers to put money aside to pay for additional expenditure when the offsetting mechanism of MPF is taken away. For major corporations, this won't be a problem. However, when it comes to SMEs with fewer employees, salary accounts a lion's share of their operational cost. If they have to set aside a large amount, this will tighten the cash flow of the enterprise. But if too little is put away, then that is not enough to pay for severance pay. A lot of SME owners lead a more difficult life than their employees. They are faced with tremendous stress. Well, with the offsetting mechanism being taken away, and should the company runs into a loss, they will not be able to make use of the contribution made by them to pay severance pay. They would run into great financial difficulties. So if the offsetting mechanism is to be taken away, they need to take into account the huge impact on businesses, because this would discourage people from starting their own business, which in turn will encourage more monopolies. The DAB has been asking for initiatives to drive down MPF management cost. the average fund fees has been driven down to 1.55%. But only half of the funds are kept under 1.5% or under. So there is still much room for the fees to be reduced. Well, there needs to be strengthening of products. Say, for example, those linked with inflation or linked with the return of the exchange fund, or saving products like bank deposits. And there can be a fixed administrative cost, and also management fees that is undertaken by the administration, that is those related to default investment scheme. I want to turn now to convention and exhibition. I agree with the diversified economy development. In the policy address, it mentioned about support to convention and exhibition facilities. We can see that when it comes to developing district economy, the administration is determined. We're happy to see that. I would like to talk about policies related to the commerce and industry sector. This is my personal view. First, about convention and exhibition sector. More and more important has been attached to it by a lot of jurisdictions, because it's about catering, transportation, trading. Is actually the locomotive. So a lot of countries devote more resources to develop convention and exhibition. Starting from 2008, and the emphasis shifted towards Asia. More and more exhibition centers have been built, and capability to host events are enhanced. I asked the administration to seize the opportunity. In a policy address, it was proposed that the Hong Kong CEC in Wan Chai will be expanded. There will be another facility of international standard nearby. And in the exhibition station of the Shatin Central Line, the superstructure will see another convention and exhibition center. These will bring more development opportunities to the sector, which will make greater contribution to Hong Kong's economy.
However, we should also note the challenges facing convention and exhibition industry in Hong Kong, and these challenges are posed by other neighboring countries. According to government figures, the relevant tourist arrival figures have increased from 1.26 million in 2011 to 2.48 million in 2015. Equally, for Shenzhen, our neighbor, in relation to the new convention center, Phase 1 project, there would be an indoor exhibition hall and the related supporting facilities covering an area of 400,000 square meters, 2.6 times our venue size. And in Singapore, in 2014, they published a roadmap laying out their strategy starting from 2010 onwards. They would like to develop a smart city that places focus on tourism and also to attract talents. What's different from Singapore is that for Hong Kong, for Singapore, the eligible organizations would receive subsidy from the government. And they would be subsidized up to 70% of the expenses, so as to tie into with the rapid development of the relevant industry. As a result, we ranked 15th in 2015 in relation to our convention facilities, but now we only rank the 19th. This is a warning signal to our MICE industry. I hope the administration would speed up the construction of exhibition and convention facilities. You should take control. You should not drag on your feet, so that we can continue to be the leader in Asia in this regard. At the same time, in planning for the future development of the MICE industry, the Hong Kong government should carefully look into the exhibition convention resources available in Hong Kong. We should optimize the use of these resources to give full play to our potential. And once again, I urge the administration to consider the positioning of the Asia World Expo. The Asia World Expo is close to the airport, and access from the urban areas may not be as convenient, and the value of Asia World Expo as a result has been underestimated. I hope that the administration will adopt a new thinking as soon as possible, because with the completion of a number of projects such as the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge, the third runway system, and also the other infrastructure projects, we will have closer ties with the PRD region. And if all these facilities can be tied in with the development of the Asia World Expo, the whole combination will form the new economic growth point for our tourism industry. And it will also bolster our status as far as tourism, financial services, exhibition, convention, hotel, etc. Of course, to have sustainability, we must strike a balance between development and conservation. Green development will be the trend in the coming years. We therefore should also focus on conservation, so that as we enjoy the fruit of success of our economic development, we will not cause any harm to the environment for our future generations. Apart from the development of the MICE industry, the commerce and industrial sector is also very concerned about industrial development in Hong Kong, because it plays a very crucial role to the future development in Hong Kong. It contributes to our economy, and it is also the locomotive for long-term economic development. As we place emphasis on innovation and technology and creativity, industrial innovation is the source, and it is the industrial sector who is the user and the promoter of innovation technological development. This is already an emerging trend, and I hope the administration will place more emphasis in this regard. From traditional manufacturing industry, we can take a look at reindustrialization. From the government's report, we understand that in recent years, we have a number of industries such as the production of molds, the food processing industry, and also for medical equipment production. We see a return of these industries to Hong Kong. And there is an urgent need to provide more factories and manpower to support the development of these sectors. I am glad to hear that the government is going to introduce a two-tier profits tax regime, and there will also be a committee on planning for manpower to devise measures to nurture human capital for different sectors. All these will provide a favorable environment for the development of traditional industries. I hope that these initiatives will be implemented, and I hope to see more concessionary measures to provide comprehensive support for SMEs. And on the front of financing, human capital, product development, etc., support can be given to these industries which are returning.
At the same time, apart from the traditional manufacturing industries that I mentioned just now, we also have some high technology-based industries which forms the mainstream industries. We're departing from the old path where we focused on labor-intensive industries. We're now turning to high value-added autonomous and innovation-based industries, which will be the new driver for our industries. The government also places a lot of importance to industrialization. In the policy address, we understand that there will be a technology talent scheme of $500 million for practitioners in the industry to receive technology training, and there will also be other proposals such as expansion of the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, and all these will provide a favorable environment. And the C&I sector welcomes the government's initiatives. We hope that the government will expeditiously implement all these initiatives. At the same time, in terms of operational models and production lines, the C&I sector will also put in resources to work with the government so that we can go global. Now I'd like to move on from reindustrialization to I&T and commercialization of R&D results. Whilst the government is placing emphasis on innovation and technology, by investing more resources for high-ended R&D and also implement initiatives to attract talents and also world-renowned enterprises to set up headquarters in Hong Kong. All these would help the development of R&D in Hong Kong and provide sustainability. However, the C&I sector is also concerned as to whether the R&D products will carry any commercial value, whether they would be suitable for our market, because it's all about commercialization of R&D results. It should be market-oriented, and there should be collaboration between the academics, the government, and the business, etc. If we only place emphasis and resources on really high-ended R&D research which cannot be commercialized and made available in the market, then it will render the whole exercise meaningless. As a representative of the C&I sector, I hope that when scrutinizing these R&D proposals, the government would also consider the feasibility of commercializing the R&D results, and we should also place more emphasis on more practical R&D projects, so that we can help promote economic development. I so submit, Madam Deputy, I support the motion and I oppose all the amendments. Mr. Martin Yao. Madam Deputy, the Chief Executive delivered the first policy address, which shows that she would like to adopt a new attitude in terms of governance, and she would like to depart from the usual mentality of a small government and the laissez-faire policy. She would like to be proactive, and she would like the government to take up new roles as a regulator, promoter, facilitator, and a driver of economic development. And she would also like to improve people's livelihood by building more rungs on the housing ladder, and also draw up long-term plans for economic development. On all these fronts, we understand that this government is very proactive, and we should also leverage on the Big Bay Area plan. And for the Big Bay Area plan, there are only 2 paragraphs,
in the policy address, but the concept of Bay Area actually is shown in different areas, especially on nurturing of human capital, etc. In July, under the witness of President Xi Jinping, the National Reform Development Commission signed an agreement with the Hong Kong government on the development of the Guangdong-Hong Kong-Macao Great Area, Bay Area, and the mainland attaches great importance to the development of the Bay Area, and I hope that the Hong Kong SAR government and the community will both be mentally and physically prepared so that we can join hands with the cities in the Bay Area. And there should also be promotion of I&T development so that we can give full play to our unique status and positioning in the area. However, if we continue to drag on our feet, if we do not grasp the opportunities, then we will only be trailing behind in regret. We will be marginalized, and we may even become a second-class city. In the past 2 weeks, this council debated on the motion on the follow-up work of the collocation arrangement of the XRL Hong Kong section. The opposition camp opposed the motion for the purpose of opposition. They resorted to filibustering, which was absolutely ludicrous. The opposition camp played the delay tactic in putting a vote on the motion and having it passed. If they don't mend their ways, they will just be sacrificing our development opportunities and the interests of the public. Madam Deputy, we have a competitive edge as far as our business environment is concerned. We have the Business Environment Report published by the World Bank in 2018, and we ranked the 5th for the Global Economic Forum. We have the Global Competitiveness Report, which showed that we ranked the 6th. And for the Chinese competitiveness of Chinese cities, again we ranked the 1st. And for the Swiss Institute report in 2017, we continued to rank the 1st. And for the 23rd consecutive year, we were regarded as the freest economy by the Heritage Foundation in the U.S.
But shall we just rest on our laurels and be contented with our high ranking? Or shall we seize upon the opportunities presented by the country's development and go further? Now, the overall economic performance this year is better than expected. It could reach more than 3.5%. But then for the traditional industries, they are seeing more competition. And also their own development seeing signs of stalling. And also we see ever-changing geopolitical situation. So capital flow could be seriously affected any time. We want to consolidate our foundation. So we must therefore latch upon the development of the Bay Area and capitalize on our advantages in promoting more diversified economic development. Under one country, two systems, which is an advantage, Hong Kong could take advantage of the development of the Bay Area and then leverage on our own competitiveness in the financial and other sectors. For example, for offshore renminbi settlement business, if the limit could be gradually increased, it will help to promote development. And also, with the Great Bay Area, that will help to promote a connection of different financial services. In the policy address, there's a proposal to launch a EID, electronic identity for Hong Kong residents. Well, that's a welcome move, but the government should consider going further. so that for all financial service platforms, there could be co-development. So there could be people coming from outside Hong Kong making use of such facilities. This will help to consolidate Hong Kong's position as a financial center in the Bay Area. Our trade industry is facing fierce competition in the global market. In the policy address, there's proposal to identify different sites for logistics purposes, but to consolidate our position as a hub for people, goods, and capital flow. The biggest challenge is how we could integrate into the development of the Bay Area. Then there will be balanced development of Hong Kong and other cities in the Bay Area. But how do we make a breakthrough? And how can the Hong Kong SAR government play the new role of a facilitator and a promoter? Well, it's more than lip service. We must do a proper job in promoting G2C, G2G. So we could develop our airport as a world-class aviation hub for passengers and cargo. Now, Hong Kong has always been seen as an advanced metropolis, but on the infrastructure development, Hong Kong has been lagging behind in past years. And it's a critical case in terms of research and development. In the policy address, there's proposal to increase the percentage of R&D expenditure. It's still not sufficient, but at least it's a start. And I must commend the government for this change of stance. But after deploying more resources into the sector, can we really help Hong Kong to catch up on INT development? Well, then it's a matter of vision of the government, and it's a matter of being able to move with the times. Now, for civil servants, how can we enhance or sharpen their perspectives in terms of INT development? There's recently a good example for the government to consider. Some time ago, the University of Science and Technology lecturers and students developed the first driverless golf cart in the world. Well, Hong Kong started late, but for the UST research, somehow the R&D outcome could not receive permission from the Transport Department for road tests. That's why the relevant project coordinators suggest the government should perhaps do road tests or follow the Singapore example in setting up a site for such road tests. I hope the government will think out of the box and remove all the barriers for the development of R&D, so Hong Kong won't become marginalized. Madam Deputy, there are now 500,000 Hong Kong people living on the mainland, and there are 250,000 Hong Kong people working on the mainland. There are also 15,000 Hong Kong students studying at high institutions on the mainland. For any economy with a sufficient scale, it must contain various elements: talents, resources, communications, space, and so on. Innovation and technology development could help young people get jobs. With the development of the Bay Area, that will help young people to realize their dreams in terms of studies and work. Now, it's not easy for young people to start a business on the mainland. Apart from capital, they may not be familiar. Young people may not be familiar with the regulatory framework on the mainland, and they face difficulties. Some time ago, there was a study. Findings show that in 3 major cities on the mainland, there are Hong Kong students studying there, and they pointed out that when they wanted to get internship on the mainland, they faced difficulties. That's because probably that they don't have the mainland connections. And also, the mainland authorities would not give them work visas, so they're not able to stay behind and work there. So the SL government must give them assistance so young people could find employment or start a business in the Bay Area. For the GDP of Bay Area, it was 1.4 trillion US dollars last year. So similar to the GDP scale for, say, the San Francisco Bay Area. But then the GDP per capita is only 20,000 US dollars, lower than New York, San Francisco, or other Bay Areas. So there's still plenty of room for development. For the logistics, the financial services, professional service, and other services in Hong Kong, there's plenty of scope of development in the Bay Area, but it's a matter of whether Hong Kong people prepared to integrate with Bay Area, or we want to stay isolated and let other cities catch up, even overtake us. Now, under the one country, two systems, Hong Kong should have the confidence to take advantage of the Bay Area development. Then we can take the economy forward. So I appeal to the public and members of the council that we should all work together to make the pie bigger. So together we could be actively engaged in the development of Bay Area. So 9 plus 2 would then be more than 11. Thank you. Mrs. Regina Ip. Thank you, Madam Deputy.